Greetings. Once again, this is Alyssa Lucadamo presenting the next installment of my digital evidence portfolio. This presentation focuses on the NAGC CEC Teacher Knowledge and Skills Standard 5, Instructional Planning and Strategies. Standard 5 states that beginning gifted education professionals select, adapt, and use a repertoire of evidence-based instructional strategies to advance the learning of individuals with gifts and talents. The first two substandards, which I'll be discussing, can be seen below. Standard 5.1 focuses on my use of evidence-based differentiation and acceleration practices and instructional strategies to enhance the critical and creative thinking and problem-solving and performance skills. 5.2 focuses on my use of technology for instruction, planning, and assessment. The artifact on the left is an example of a tiered lesson that I used as part of my PTAR project. This lesson exhibits my skills of differentiation and lesson planning. The learning activities in this lesson were tiered based on student readiness, and students in each group received targeted instruction to address specific strengths and weaknesses in their writing. The artifact on the left demonstrates my capacity for providing acceleration opportunities for my students. Because my gifted and talented learners are generally more fluent readers with stronger comprehension skills, they are able to read the play Romeo and Juliet at a faster pace. While most teachers with regular and inclusion class sections choose to abridge the play by eliminating the highlighted scenes from their students' reading assignments, I have time for my gifted students to read the entire play and provide more exposure to the richness of Shakespeare's language and plotting. Additionally, my gifted students come into class with deeper background knowledge of the conventions of a drama and of the concepts of theme and symbol. By using pre-assessments, I can determine that less instructional time on these basic concepts is needed for my gifted and talented students. I can then use that saved time to complete the high-level thinking tasks, as the next slide will show. This artifact represents one example of a creative thinking, a problem-solving, performance-based task that my students complete. As you may remember from my presentation on Standard 3 Curricular Content Knowledge, my students begin the drama unit by completing a web quest that requires them to navigate through a variety of internet sources to answer a series of research questions. For my gifted and talented students, I take this activity a step further by asking each small group to design a creative way of presenting the information they have learned to their peers. Some groups presented presentations using online tools such as Google Slides or Prezi, and they followed their presentation with a competitive Kahoot quiz designed to assess their peers. Others wrote original skits to illustrate the life of Queen Elizabeth I or the devastating effects of the bubonic plague. This artifact, along with the previous two, shows my progress toward meeting Standard 5.1. Because my gifted and talented students are capable of learning at a faster pace, I can expose them to more of the text and provide more opportunities for creative thinking and problem solving, as evidenced by the web quest and presentations. My learning activities are also differentiated, sometimes by readiness, as the tiered writing lessons, and sometimes as in the tiered writing lessons, and sometimes by student choice, as in the web quest presentation. The creative performance tasks described on the last slide would not be possible without the use of technology. The artifacts on this page show the technological tools I use to meet Standard 5.2. The first two photos depict the document camera and the smartboard in my classroom, both of which are used for instruction. During instruction, I use the smartboard to project a variety of relevant information, including video clips and internet resources. My students also use it during instruction as they participate in my interactive grammar warm-up. The document camera is useful for sharing students' work with the whole class or for modeling processes like annotation and note-taking. The image on the right shows the laptop card assigned to my team. We also have access to 31 Chromebook computers. Students use these computers during instruction to access course materials, and they're an integral part of assessment because students use the laptops to conduct research, compose written assignments, and even take tests and quizzes. Schoology, the learning management system used in our district, makes all of these instructional and assessment applications possible. I also use the desktop computer in my classroom to type lesson plans, design learning activities, and collect source materials to use during my lessons. Taken together, all of these artifacts demonstrate my competency in Standard 5.2 because they display my use of classroom technology for a variety of purposes including planning, assessment, and instruction. Next, I'll be moving on to discuss the last three substandards. 5.3 addresses collaboration with families and colleagues. 5.4 deals with the transfer of advanced knowledge and skills. And 5.5 deals with strategies to enhance effective development. This slide displays the notes that I've recorded for a single student. Identifying information has been blacked out to protect the student's anonymity. Each time I contacted the student's parents to discuss the child's grades or behavior, I document it here. Other teachers and administrators also have access to this information. This record of contact demonstrates that I am making progress toward meeting standard 5.5 because it shows that I'm committed to collaborating with families. In this case, the initial parent contact was sparked because I noticed a pattern of underachieving behavior. Through phone conversations with the student's parents and a conference with the student and his mother, eventually the student's academic performance improved and I was able to make a positive phone call. The next slide also contributes to evidence of my progress toward meeting standard 5.3. Here you can see an example of the meeting minutes recorded during a meeting of the 8th grade English Language Arts Department. The 8th grade ELA department meets weekly on Thursdays to discuss pacing, instructional strategies, materials, and assessments. The materials that we create are placed on a shared drive to which all ELA teachers have access. The meeting minutes demonstrate my progress toward meeting standard 5.3 because they show that I collaborate with my colleagues to discuss instruction and assessment. In this particular example, we were evaluating a common summative unit assessment to determine whether it was appropriate for our various groups of students. My active participation in these meetings is vital because I'm the only 8th grade ELA teacher who works with gifted and talented students, at least students who are identified as gifted and talented. I can work as an advocate for my students in the department to make sure that our curriculum includes instructional materials and assessments that reflect the needs of our gifted and talented students. This next artifact represents my progress toward meeting standard 5.4. In this argumentative essay writing assignment, students found themselves taking on the roles of lawyers, arguing a case involving characters in a novel we had read as a class. Students used the sources featured on this slide to gather information on legal precedents and interpretations of the law. This assignment demonstrates my progress toward meeting standard 5.4 because the acts of research and composing an argument based on text are widely applicable across many career fields. Students will be able to use these skills whether they become lawyers, scientists, or politicians. Additionally, the assignment requires students to use counter-arguments to examine the opposing view. This prepares students to enter a multicultural society because it teaches them to see the same situation from multiple perspectives. Preparing students to live, work, and interact in a multicultural society requires the development of social and emotional skills as well as intellectual skills. The artifacts on this slide demonstrate my progress toward meeting standard 5.5, which focuses on effective development. In this learning activity, students participated in a philosophical chairs debate about one of the essay topics from the previous slide. Students developed an effective skills by agreeing on a list of student-generated class discussion expectations displayed on the left. The debate itself gave students the chance to practice the rules of collegial discourse, even when faced with someone whose opinion differed. Finally, the reflective writing activity after the debate encouraged metacognition by asking students to think about how the discussion affected their viewpoints. These artifacts show my progress toward meeting standard 5.5 because they display an example of a learning activity used in my classroom that gave students the chance to practice valuable social skills, such as stating points clearly, listening to others, and using respectful language. Additionally, the learning activity develops students' metacognitive skills by engaging the students in self-reflective thinking. In collecting evidence for this part of my portfolio, I was struck by how much of the instructional materials were created by other teachers, or created by myself in collaboration with others. The Shakespeare WebQuest and argument essay were both collaborative efforts and have been changed and tweaked by the department yearly to improve them. This observation made me realize that one of the most important phrases in Standard 5.5 is the three verbs, select, adapt, and use. These three words sum up a large part of any teacher's work, not just the work of a teacher of gifted students. Veteran teachers often advise novices not to reinvent the wheel when designing instruction and assessments. Though initially this may sound like laziness, it actually reveals that teachers need to be savvy scavengers, seeking potential value in texts and assignments that may otherwise be dismissed as too difficult to implement. Our craft lies in the ability to revise the materials we find or develop ourselves in order to fit the unique needs of our students. Gifted education professionals need to be particularly mindful of the needs of their students as they select, adapt, and use instructional materials, sometimes moving through the curriculum at a faster pace, and other times providing students with opportunities to develop transferable skills like creativity and problem solving. We must also design instruction with an eye toward developing affective skills, considering the fact that gifted and talented students often have affective needs that may differ from those of the rest of the student population. My references can be seen on the final slide. Thank you for taking the time once again to listen to my presentation, and I look forward to sharing the rest of my portfolio with you.